In a mountain village, a young man sought out the greatest archery master because he believed his life depended on hitting the mark. He trained for years, spent his coins, bought the perfect bow, and yet his hand still trembled when it mattered most. Then he heard a strange rumor, an old man who taught how to shoot without a bow, using only breath. It sounded impossible, but within that madness hid a truth. You don't need the object if you master the essence. The young man's name was Ren. He was in his early 20s, with an intense gaze and a pride he didn't know how to hide. He walked to the old man's house at the edge of the forest, where the wind smelled of damp pine and warm tea. The door was slightly open. Ren stepped inside and saw the master sitting motionless, as if listening to something others could not hear. "I've come for your technique," Ren said. The master opened his eyes and replied, "First come for your calm." Ren frowned. "I brought my bow," he insisted, lifting it as proof. The master didn't look at it. He pointed to a lit candle and a dry leaf on the floor. "Put out the candle without blowing on it. Move the leaf without touching it." Ren laughed nervously. He tried with force, with haste, with sheer will. Nothing changed. The candle remained steady. The leaf stayed still. The master only said, "Your mind makes noise, and that noise pushes your hands." Offended, Ren asked for a demonstration. The master stood up without taking a bow or an arrow. He walked into the courtyard. Old snow crunched beneath his sandals. He stopped in front of a tree several steps away and closed his eyes. Only his breathing could be heard, slow, deep, like a wave returning to the sea. Then he extended his fingers as if holding an invisible string and released the air. In that instant, a dried fruit fell from the tree. Ren froze. Coincidence? Or a message? Ren wanted to believe it was luck. "The wind knocked it down," he murmured, trying to save his pride. But the master smiled faintly, like someone who doesn't argue with a child. "If it was the wind, then learn from the wind," he said. Ren clenched his fists. He felt humiliated without a single raised voice. And there the first real clash was born. It wasn't a test of accuracy. It was a test of identity. Because Ren didn't know how to fail without becoming angry. The master asked Ren to leave the bow resting against the wall. "You won't use it today," he said calmly. Ren obeyed reluctantly. They sat facing each other. The old man set the rhythm. Slow inhale, even slower exhale. At first, Ren felt only impatience. His chest tightened, his mind raced. Every second without action felt like a loss. "Breathing doesn't change anything," he thought. But the master added, "Everything changes here first." Days passed. Ren returned again and again without shooting a single arrow. The village began to whisper. "He's become lazy," they said. "That old man is wasting his time." Ren heard those voices and doubted. What if they were right? Yet something strange was happening. When he breathed as the master taught, his pulse settled. For the first time, he felt no urgency. Calm was beginning to unsettle him more than effort ever had. One morning, the master took Ren to a clearing in the forest. He hung a small bell from a branch. "Make it ring," he said, without touching it. Ren closed his eyes, remembered the breathing, and extended his hand. Nothing happened. He opened his eyes in frustration. "Don't try to make it happen," the old man said. "Stop pushing." Ren released the air, lowered his shoulder, and the bell trembled slightly, as if something invisible had brushed against it. The sound was faint, but inside Ren it exploded like thunder. The village was not there to see it, but his pride was. "I did it!" he exclaimed. The master shook his head. "No, it happened," he corrected. That difference wounded Ren. How could the achievement not be his? That night, Ren slept poorly. He dreamed of arrows that released themselves and empty hands that still hit the mark. He woke up confused. If it wasn't his strength, then what was it? The next day, Ren asked to return to the bow. "I want to try," he pleaded. The master agreed. Ren took the arrow with renewed confidence. He breathed, drew, released. He missed. He tried again. Missed even worse. Frustration returned like an old enemy. The master watched in silence and then said, "When you were empty, something happened. Now you are full of wanting to win." Ren understood something painful. He had gone backward without moving. Ren felt shame. Not for missing, but for discovering that his greatest obstacle was not technique, but his need to prove himself. That night, as the wind struck the wooden roof, he remembered every mockery from the village and every praise he had chased. He realized he had always shot in order to be seen. At dawn, he returned to the master with no bow in his hands. "Teach me how to disappear," he said softly. The old man led him to the river. The water ran clear, but strong. "Cross without getting wet?" he asked. Ren laughed in disbelief. "Impossible." The master replied, "That's what you said about the bell." Ren breathed, moved forward carefully, listened to the rhythm of the water, and adjusted his steps. He slipped. He got wet. He stood up. He tried again. On the third attempt, he crossed by stepping where the water pushed less. He did not defeat the river. He read it. That day marked the turning point. Ren understood that the target was not outside, but in the way he looked. The master had him repeat invisible gestures, drawing without a string, releasing without an arrow, looking without seeking. Something shifted. Ren stopped asking when and began listening to how. Atanu? It was a silent defeat of his ego, and a victory not yet celebrated. The village kept judging. "He's lost his way," they said. "He'll return with nothing." Ren heard them pass by the master's house, and for the first time, he did not react. The old man noticed the change and nodded. "Now you can hold a bow," he said. Ren took his. There was no ceremony, only breathing. The air came in, the air went out. Time seemed to stop. Ren released the arrow without thinking about hitting the mark. He did not see the impact. He only heard the dull sound of the center of the target. He opened his eyes in surprise. He had hit like never before. The master did not applaud. He said something that sealed the midpoint. "Today you shot without an archer. From now on, you will not be able to do it the way you did before." Ren understood. The story could not turn back. The news spread quickly. The young man who had set aside the bow now hit without effort. Some called it a prodigy, others a trick. Ren returned to the village and accepted a public challenge to shoot in front of everyone. That night, he barely slept. The noise returned to his mind. What if he missed? What if he lost what he had learned? At dawn, he understood the real risk. It wasn't missing the target. It was losing the calm he had found. The square was full. Stares, whispers, expectations. Ren held the bow. He remembered the breathing, but the murmur pierced him. He drew. He hesitated. He missed the first shot. Soft laughter. The second grazed the edge. The noise grew. Ren felt the old urge to force it. Then he lowered the bow. He closed his eyes. The village grew uneasy. "What is he doing?" they said. Ren stopped listening outward and returned inward. In that silence, he remembered the master standing before the tree. Without a bow, without haste, he breathed as if there were no spectators. When he opened his eyes, the world seemed simpler. He drew. He released. The arrow flew clean and struck the center. The murmur turned into astonishment. Ren did not smile. He felt something deeper. He did not need to repeat it. The shot had already taken place within. The master watched from a distance. He knew this was not the end. As evening fell, Ren returned to the house in the forest. "Am I finished?" he asked. The old man shook his head gently. "Now comes what is difficult." Ren frowned. What is still missing? The master replied, letting go even of the result. That sentence weighed more than any bow. Ren understood that applause could also lead him astray. That night, the master asked Ren to leave at dawn. Return when you no longer need to return, he said. Ren felt an unexpected emptiness. He had learned to shoot, but not yet to live without clinging. The greatest challenge was not hitting the mark, but preserving the essence when no one was watching. There, the true climax was being prepared, choosing whether to use what he had learned to shine or to be at peace. At dawn, Ren walked alone along the path leading out. Each step felt heavier than the last. He carried the bow on his shoulder, but sensed something within him resisting its use. When he reached a crossroads, he heard shouts. A child from the village was trapped on the other side of a swollen river. The current was strong. No one dared to cross. All eyes turned toward Ren. "Shoot a rope," they asked. Ren hesitated. That moment was the true point of tension. If he failed, he would lose everything. If he succeeded, pride would return. Ren breathed. He looked at the river. He did not think about technique or applause. He set the bow on the ground. He stepped into the water calmly, reading the current as he had learned before. He moved step by step, using the force of the river to steady himself. He reached the child, took him in his arms, and returned. There was no arrow. There was presence. The people fell silent. They expected something more, a display, a feat. Ren simply bowed his head. The child was safe. That was enough. The master appeared among the trees and watched without a word. Ren understood the true climax. He had chosen the essence over the object, care over recognition. In that simple act, the bow ceased to be necessary. That night, Ren returned to the forest. He left the bow resting beside the master's door and sat down to breathe. There was no goal and no target, only the air moving in and out. He understood that the teaching was not, do not use the bow, but do not depend on it. When the inner state is in order, the right action appears on its own, with a bow or without one. From then on, Ren taught without imposing himself. Sometimes he used the bow. Sometimes he did not. To those who asked, he would say, "Master your breath, and you will master your action." When you understand the essence, the object no longer governs you. Thus, the moral was planted. It is not the tool that transforms life, but the inner mastery with which you choose to use it. And whoever learns this never shoots in vain.